Hello, everybody. Welcome to the April 19th meeting of the Kiwanis Club of Easton, Pennsylvania. So glad to see you here. We have some wonderful guests that we'd like to welcome. Kevin Thomas, the Executive Director of the Pennsylvania District. 37 years? 37 years. Amazing. It's so wonderful to have you here, Kevin. We're going to give you an opportunity to speak with us a little bit later, and it's always great to have our Lieutenant Governor. Thank you for coming, Bob Moran. Please stand with me and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
God bless America.
God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. From the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home.
Please be seated. I know this might be short notice, but Barbara, do we have a moment of inspiration?
I do.
Oh, wonderful.
I do. 13 inspiring traits of exceptional leaders. 1, they trust you to do the job you've been hired to do. 2, they seek your advice and input. 3, they find opportunities to let you shine. 4, they recognize your contributions. 5, they have your back during tough times. 6, they are master storytellers. 7, they challenge you to do bigger and better things. 8, they express appreciation. 9, they are responsive. 10, they know when to apologize. 11, they give credit where credit is due. 12, they treat others with dignity and respect. And 13, they care. And those are quotes from Glenn Leibowitz.
Thank you, Barbara. Can I get a copy of that? I could use some of those. Especially the responsive one.
I'm trying to get through traffic. I'll give you that.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you. Yes. We are especially blessed today with a wonderful speaker. And I'm going to allow Jan Schwartz to introduce our speaker. Pardon me there on this.
Thanks. I get to introduce my colleague, Kimberly Early. I'm so happy she made the trip from Harrisburg today. Kimberly is the Senior Director of Public Policy and Advocacy for PennAEYC, which is the Pennsylvania Association for the Education of Young Children. Kim leads PennAEYC's bipartisan government relations effort with local, state, and national elected officials and their staff. She's forwarding the organization's advocacy agenda. She's responsible for policy development, monitoring, analysis, and works collaboratively with our state advocacy coalition and national partners. Kim is a licensed social worker with 25 years of experience in health and human services, including child welfare, early childhood care and education, long-term care, public health, and behavioral health at the nonprofit and local and state government levels. Prior to joining PennAEYC in March 2020, Kim served as policy director for the Pennsylvania Department of Health and was responsible for directing policy development activities for the department consistent with the priorities established by Governor Wolf and Secretary Dr. Rachel Levine. Prior to that, Kim served as the Deputy Director of Human in the Office of Policy Development for the Pennsylvania Department of Human Services, where she focused on issues under the jurisdiction of the Office of Child Development and Early Learning, OCDEL, and the Office of Children, Youth, and Families. Kim holds a Bachelor of Science degree in psychology from the University of Pittsburgh and a Master's of Social Work from Temple University. She lives in Harrisburg with her husband, Steve, and son, Mason. So happy she's here today.
Thanks, Jan. So going to pull the slides up. So thanks so much for the invitation to come today, and happy month of the young child. So April is the month of the young child. So just to say happy month of the young child to everyone. I'm going to be talking about early care and education and the current landscape, and then also talk about some advocacy opportunities that are available to all of us. So PennAEYC is the Pennsylvania Association for the Education of Young Children. As Jan mentioned, we're the Pennsylvania affiliate of the National Association for the Education of Young Children. And we are a statewide nonprofit membership organization that has over 3,300 members statewide. And we also have 10 chapters across the state as well. Nationally, we have 52 affiliates and nearly 60,000 individual members nationwide. So PennAEYC, our mission is to be an effective voice for high quality early care and education. And we do this through policy development, professional development, advocacy, and supports for early care and education professionals. And our vision is that each and every child in Pennsylvania has access to high quality, affordable early care and education opportunities, and that it's provided by a profession that is valued, well supported, and compensated. So those are our mission and visions. Thank you. And then our organizational goal is really to serve as a leader in the state and to be looked to for that early care and education policy items, advocacy in terms of the General Assembly and other policymakers in the administration, and also Congress and congressional delegation and staff reaching out to us for our expertise in the field of early care and education. Next slide. And then just specifically, we have listed our policy goals there. So one focuses on childcare. The next one focuses on compensation. So we want to make sure that those in the field are well compensated. We also want to increase access to high quality pre-K. And we also added recently or this year early intervention as an advocacy agenda item, but basically implementing a statewide advocacy agenda around early intervention. And the next one is on advancing policies that support equity and making sure everyone has an equitable opportunity to early care and education. And then lastly, around supporting high quality experiences, basically making sure that we have more high quality childcare programs available. So PennAEYC is a principal partner in the Early Learning Pennsylvania Coalition. And Early Learning PA is a broad-based coalition of statewide and regionally based organizations across the state. And we all work together to advance early care and education. Next slide. And so this is just a chart to kind of share how Early Learning PA looks or visually, but we have 4 campaigns, issue advocacy campaigns that we operate, and all of them really fall under that voluntary high quality early care and education and healthy development opportunities for Pennsylvania families and children. So the 4 campaigns are Childhood Begins at Home, which is our evidence-based home visiting campaign. Sorry, one slide back. And then the next one is Start Strong PA, which is our childcare campaign, which focuses on making sure families have access to high quality, affordable childcare. The next one is Pre-K for PA, which focuses on increasing access to high quality pre-K. And then our 4th one is Thriving PA, which focuses on perinatal health, child health, and early intervention falls there. And that's our most recent campaign that was launched in 2021. Next slide. So this is just an example of the principal partner organizations that are a part of each campaign. You'll see them listed there, United Way of Pennsylvania. We have Mission Readiness, Fight Crime, Invest in Kids, Pennsylvania Partnerships for Children. Organizations such as that are part of the pre-K campaign. Next slide. And then the Start Strong principal partners are listed there. You will see some similarity between those 2 campaigns. The next slide is Childhood Begins at Home. So those are the organizations there that are a part of that, a little bit different than the other two campaigns. And then the next slide is Thriving PA. On the left side are the Thriving PA, the perinatal and child health partners. And then on the right side are the early intervention partners, which focus there. So you're probably wondering why early childhood development matters. Well, it matters because we know that during the next slide, you can go to the next slide. Thank you. Then the period in the early years is the period where children's brains grow the fastest. And that's why it's important that they have access to high quality experiences that is provided by, adults that are responsive and caring. And that really is important to them at that early age and really sets them up for success and gives them that strong foundation early on. So children, we do know, one more slide back, sorry. We do know that children who start kindergarten behind tend to stay behind. So it's really important that they have those high quality experiences either in pre-K or childcare to build that so that when they go to the K through 12 system, they are ready to go and ready to learn. And some of the benefits really or the impact of starting kindergarten behind on target is there's better health and education career outcomes for children, higher education, it impacts the labor force in the future, and then cost savings for school retention and remediation and those sorts of things listed there. Next slide. So I'm going to talk specifically today about the Start Strong PA and the Pre-K for PA campaigns. Next slide. So we have the Pre-K for PA campaign. That campaign, as I mentioned, focuses on high quality pre-K. It launched in 2014, and our vision is to ensure that every child enters kindergarten ready to succeed, and focuses on making sure every 3- and 4-year-old has access in Pennsylvania. There's two ways that can be done. So we like to see investments in pre-K counts, which is the Pennsylvania's state-funded pre-K program. And then Head Start. So Head Start is federally funded, but Pennsylvania does include some state dollars to add slots so that more children could be served. So we call that the Head Start Supplemental Assistance Program. So we really, the Pre-K for PA campaign focuses on those two areas and line items and making sure that we're increasing investments each year. And you can join the campaign there at that website if you're not already a member, but I'm sure Jan has shared this information before with you all. So the current pre-K landscape, next slide, just to give you an update on where we are in terms of funding and children served and eligibility. So in this current fiscal year, $302 million is in the state budget to fund pre-K counts. And it serves over 27,000 children statewide. And to enter and be eligible for pre-K counts, you have to be under 300% of poverty. So for a family of 4, that's $83,250. And it serves a mixed delivery system. So pre-K counts can be in a Star 3 or 4 childcare center or group family childcare home. I'm sorry, group childcare home, or a PDE licensed nursery program, or a school district. So those are kind of the programs where pre-K counts, you'll see pre-K counts. Most pre-K or half of pre-K count slots are in a childcare program. And then Head Start, they're funded at $88 million for this year. And to be eligible for that, you have to be 100% under poverty. Next slide. So in terms of the unmet need in Pennsylvania, we unfortunately do have children that don't have access to high quality pre-K that would be eligible. So there's over 153,000 3- and 4-year-olds in Pennsylvania. 57% of them do not have access to high quality pre-K. So that's over 87,000 children. So statewide, we're serving a small portion of 3- and 4-year-olds that would be eligible. Next slide. And so this is a fact sheet that we have, and we can make sure that you get this electronically so that you have it. But this is the fact sheet that we share when we do a lot of our advocacy. So we share this with legislators, policymakers, and those in the community so that they can help us advocate for increases in a high quality pre-K. But it outlines the unmet need, the number of children that don't have access, And then it also shares the number of classrooms, additional classrooms that it would take to serve the 87,000 children. So that would be 4,300 additional classrooms statewide. And then specifically in Northampton County, we do have data there, a fact sheet that looks like that, but it's specific to Northampton. 76% of the eligible 3 and 4-year-olds, oh, I'm sorry, reading the wrong one. 63% of the eligible 3 and 4-year-olds in Northampton County currently don't have access. So that's nearly 2,000 children. And it would take 98 additional classrooms to serve that nearly 2,000 children in high quality pre-K. And sorry for those that are virtual, they'll have to have their own pizza. So then the Start Strong PA campaign focuses on high quality, affordable childcare. It supports healthy childhood development, school success, working families, and the economy by assuring each and every child has access. And this campaign launched in 2019. So the current landscape, next slide, around Start Strong PA, next slide, is I am sharing the funding that we currently have in the current state budget. It's over 291 million. You can go to the next slide. Thank you. Over 291 million in state funding. And then the federal, we also get federal funding, over 964 million in recurring federal funding. That's a combination of Child Care Development Block Grant, TANF, SNAP, and the Social Services Block Grant funding. So the total funding for childcare statewide is 1.2 billion. And so you can see kind of that the split. So 23% of how childcare is funded are state funds, then 77% are federal funds, just to give you a sense of how much Pennsylvania really is putting into childcare. Next slide. And then the unmet need around childcare. So I'll share a fact sheet on the next slide, but we do have data around the number of eligible. So this is specific to childcare subsidy. So families that are low-income working families are eligible for childcare subsidy to help them afford the cost of childcare. The cost of childcare often runs like around the cost of housing for a family. So it is a large portion of a family's income and is difficult for many families to afford. And so of the children that are eligible that are under the age of 5, nearly 136,000 of them do not have access to subsidized childcare. And for infants and toddlers, that's over 83,000. So it's 75% and 79% of those that are eligible don't have access. So we are serving like a quarter of families that are eligible for subsidy. And then we like to see children that are in the subsidy program to be in a high quality program. So that's the Keystone Stars 3 and 4 programs, which Keystone Stars is our quality rating improvement system that rates childcare programs. So you can be a star 1, 2, 3, or 4, and star 3 and 4 are considered high quality. So for children under 5 that are in the subsidy program, only 45% of them are in a high quality program. And for infants and toddlers, 42% of them are in a high quality program. So we do like to see that number to be much higher. But knowing that our childcare, our high quality childcare capacity is not super high, it's at 46%. So statewide, we have 6,500 certified childcare programs. 46% of them are Keystone Stars 3 or 4, which is considered high quality. And next slide. So then this is just a fact sheet for childcare specifically. Sorry, it's a little hard to read, but just to share, 75% of children that, as I mentioned, it has that in under the access, has the 79 and 75% of children that are eligible that don't have access is listed there. And then also with quality, we have those numbers. And then we also have county numbers for this too. So for Northampton County, 76% of children under 5 don't have access to subsidy. That's a little over 2,800 children in the county. And then for infants and toddlers, it's over 1,700 children, so 81%. So those averages are higher than the statewide average. And then in terms of quality in the county, 37% of the children who are in the subsidy program are in a high quality program. So that's a little bit lower than the statewide average. And then for infants and toddlers, it's 28%. So there's some room to improve there in terms of getting children who are in the subsidy program in a high quality program. But county-wide, 39% of your childcare capacity in the county is considered high quality. So because of that, it does make it difficult for families that are in subsidy to access high quality, since the number is at 39%. Statewide, that's 46%. So there's some room to improve in the county. And then we have some workforce data, just because we are going to be advocating for a workforce wage scale in this next budget. So we're doing that advocacy now, but we have some data around childcare workers. They make less than $12.50 an hour. And that's about $5.56 a week compared to other all private jobs, which are at $1,200 a week. So there is a big gap in the wages for childcare workers compared to the other workforce. Next slide. So then, as I just started to mention, the workforce, so we are focusing on that. 21% of childcare teachers rely on SNAP benefits. 21% are insured by Medicaid. So it's pretty, so they're, the wages for childcare workers are low. Nearly half of them surveyed say they're unlikely to remain in their jobs. And then 56% of those that said they're not likely to remain have the higher degrees and credentials, so bachelor's degree or higher. So we are concerned about that because we don't want to lose our higher credentialed teachers. That does impact quality in the end, the number of high quality programs that we have. Next slide. So then we did a survey of childcare programs in February. As I mentioned, there's 6,500 programs statewide. Over 1,100 of them participated in the survey that we did in February. But among those 1,100, there are 38,000 children on waiting lists. 84% of those programs said they're having a staffing shortage, nearly 4,000 open positions, and nearly 1,600 classrooms closed. So this really is a good snapshot of the scope and scale of the childcare workforce issue. And we know that it's due to the low wages that childcare workers are experiencing. Next slide. And we do have county data on that. And I'm sorry, I didn't. That's okay. Yeah, we have county the number of programs from Northampton County that participated in the survey, and we'll share those numbers with you. So the cost of the childcare crisis doesn't just impact childcare, children or families. It also impacts our economy, our Pennsylvania economy. So we have a report that was completed by the Early Learning Investment Commission and the Council for a Strong America. And we'll share that report electronically. But in that report, it's the lack of childcare is costing Pennsylvania $6.65 billion, with the B in lost wages, productivity, and revenue. So, parents who are working and their child is in care, they're distracted because they have to leave work early, or they're coming late, or they're just distracted while they're at work, and productivity is just not where it should be. So those challenges are impacting employers and employees. So 56% of the parents that were surveyed said, reported being late due to childcare struggles, reporting missing full days of work, leaving work early, distracted while at work. And more than half of parents said that problems with childcare are hurting their efforts at work in general. So I'll share that report with you. Next slide. And then we also did some polling of Pennsylvania voters in February. 98% of voters believe that early childhood education is important. So that's good. And 81% of Pennsylvania voters are in favor of allocating state funding to increase wages for childcare workers. So we're making sure that we share this polling data with our legislators so that they know what their constituents are in favor of. And the next slide. So to talk about the proposed budget, so Governor Shapiro proposed a couple investments in early learning. And so around early intervention, he proposed a $20.2 million increase, So early intervention is a service that's provided either in the home or in a childcare program. It can happen many different places, but basically if a child infant or toddler is experiencing any sort of developmental delays, someone can come into the home like an occupational therapist or speech therapist and provide that therapy so that, or that service, so the child can, when they turn 3, that they are up to speed with their peers or on par with their peers. So the 20.2 million would serve an additional 3,000 infants and toddlers in early intervention statewide. And then in Part B, there's 10.4 million in new state funding proposed. For childcare, the governor proposed 66.7 million in new state funding for to maintain subsidized childcare and also to sustain the reimbursement rates that are currently in place. So unfortunately, this does not go to serving more children, or it doesn't go to address the childcare wage crisis that's happening right now. The Department of Human Services raised childcare works reimbursement rates in January of 2022, and then they raised them slightly in March of this year. And they did that with federal ARPA dollars. So those are which is temporary dollars. So those funds are running out. And so the governor proposed this 66.7 million to maintain the rate increase and to make sure that families who currently have subsidy can maintain that. So it really does just maintain the status quo, unfortunately. And then the child care assistance line, there really was essentially level funded there. Next slide. And so as a campaign, the Start Strong PA, responded to the governor's proposal. Obviously, we support what he put forward, the 66.7 million to maintain what is happening now. We want rates to be maintained at the 60th or even higher. The feds actually recommend that states be at the 75th percentile. So when providers are providing care for children who are eligible for subsidy, they're not reimbursed at what it's actually costing them. So it's costing them, they're losing money providing subsidized childcare. And then, so programs are continuing to experience a staffing crisis as noted in the survey. And that's due to the low wages. And so we are proposing an increase in a childcare teacher wage scale. Oh, there we go. So this is the Start Strong PA campaign's budget ask. We are asking that the General Assembly invest $500 million in new and recurring state funding to implement a childcare teacher wage scale. This will help the sector compete with other labor within the labor market, recognizing teachers' qualifications and the work that they do. It would propose $15 an hour for those with a high school diploma or GED, $19 an hour for those with an associate's degree, and $21 an hour for those with a bachelor's degree or higher. We think that this is a good step to help the sector compete with other sectors who are offering higher wages, and it's extremely difficult to hire and open up classrooms when they can't attract the staff because of the low wages. So that proposal costs $430 million, and then the remaining $70 million we want to go to address childcare quality. So we want to incentivize STAR 2, 3, and 4 programs to achieve higher levels of quality. So for STAR 2, it would the additional funds would help assist them in moving up the quality ladder. And then for STAR 3 and 4 programs, it will help them get reimbursed closer to what it's actually costing them to provide that care. And then next, pre-K. So the governor proposed 33 million total in high quality pre-K. 30 million would be for pre-K counts, and that would increase the rates by $1,000. So it would be $11,000 for a full-time slot for the year and $5,500 for a part-time slot for the year. And then the Head Start Supplemental Assistance Program, 3 million or 2.7 million of that would go there, and that would also increase rates. So the governor's proposal doesn't go to serving the 87,000 children that are currently don't have access. So we, if the General Assembly were to add some more funds to that, we would certainly support serving more children in addition to raising raising rates. And so, essentially that's our response, or the pre-K for PA's response to that. We support raising rates and making sure that those in the field can get higher wages, and also accounting for inflation. And so we are, that's just our ask, which I just reiterated. On the federal side, just to share what President Biden had proposed in his budget around early learning. So he proposed a nearly a $980 million increase to the Child Care Development Block Grant, $1.1 billion increase to Head Start. And then there's also a proposal for a new initiative to expand free high quality pre-K. And then also the Preschool Development Block Grant, which Pennsylvania does get, was just awarded funds there. There's a $45 million increase from last year. And then IDEA Part B, which is early intervention, there's a proposed increase of $93 million. And for Part C, which is specific to infants and toddlers, there was a proposed increase of $435 million. And just in general, President Biden's proposal includes a $600 billion in mandatory funding over 10 years. So for childcare, that would be $400 billion, and preschool $200 billion. And that would really allow states like Pennsylvania to expand our childcare options to serve more children and preschoolers. And you're probably wondering how you can help in our efforts. We have obviously the Start Strong PA campaign, the pre-K campaign, and those are the links to how you can join and sign up. We do have action alerts. We just actually launched one this week. It's around contacting your state representative and your state senator around increasing wages. So if you sign up for the Start Strong campaign, you can sign up for do the action alert there right on the website under Take Action. And it automatically generates an email. You just put your name and your address in, and it sends an email to your state senator and state rep. And then we also sometimes do petitions, and you can participate in those. They're very quick and easy. We would certainly appreciate your support. And there's also options for letters to the editor, or just engaging, folks, in your normal walk throughout life about the issue and the need for investments in high quality childcare and pre-K. Are there any questions?
Just pop back to that slide real quick.
Oh.
Last slide.
I know I moved very fast, but yes.
Billions and billions and billions. With all this money, how does Pennsylvania compare to other states in alleviating this problem?
So I know that for pre-K, Pennsylvania, so there was a report that we did last year that talks about per capita spending, like for pre-K, for example. I believe we're like 14th. So not every state uses state dollars to fund high quality pre-K. I think there's 26 or 27 states that do. So around half. And we were 14th in spending per capita. Our neighboring states like West Virginia, New Jersey, New York, I know Alabama is another one. All of those states spend like twice as much as we do for high quality pre-K per capita. We're not at the top of the pack, but we are one of the states that does support high quality pre-K with state funds. And for childcare, in terms of like federal funding, we get like a portion of, based on census data, we get our portion of federal funds. Other states, I don't know how we compare in terms of state funding for childcare specifically. I'd have to check on that. Yeah, so I don't know the answer there in terms of like subsidy. Yeah, does that help answer your question?
Well, it's mind-boggling how much money is being ushered toward this problem, and every year it's more and more and more money is going toward it. I just didn't know how we compared to other states.
Yeah, gotcha.
My question, it's sort of will address some of what may address some of what, although you may not have the answer to this, what Skip was saying. We've been asking government to pay because we feel like that's a resource. In your advocacy period of time that you've been doing all of this. When you go to the legislators, do we ask them at all to help us to look at big business? Because big business really needs to be a part of this show. We're asking tax dollars to go to this, and that's great. You know, we're contributing. It cannot pay for all of this. People cannot afford to pay the taxes to cover the kinds of costs that are necessary to truly bring high quality to as many people, as many children as we can. Big business needs to play a role. And I don't know, when you go to the legislators, when you're talking with them, because you have their ear way more than we do. Although we're going to talk to them about also, I mean, they talk to big business all the time, and big business talks to our legislators. It's in their best interest too, because you just talked about workforce. The people who come in and take our children in childcare, if nobody's watching their children or their family or everybody, if nobody's there to watch them as they go off to work, we're in that crisis now.
Yeah.
So how come big business isn't contributing to this? Is it because they haven't been asked? Because they're, you know, they don't feel like they're part of the game? You know, and this is just my example, but sports, professional sports especially, gets all kinds of money. Comes from somewhere, somebody's talking to them to get that. I realize that it's entertainment and it's out there and people see it. But until we make a louder noise in a different direction, or at least a direction that not just in one direction, we need to reach out to a whole lot more.
Mhm.
And I don't know that.
Yeah. So with business, we have, I don't want to say collaborated, but the Early Learning Investment Commission has connected with the Pennsylvania Chamber. And I know the U.S. Chamber Foundation has done some things like during COVID around businesses, and obviously businesses understanding what their workforce needs. I know some businesses are, I know the U.S. Chamber, or I'm sorry, the Pennsylvania Chamber talked about, you know, employee or business run employee, I guess, based childcare. So, you know, childcare being in the same location as, you know, a warehouse or whatever, you know, the business is. Some of those kinds of things are being talked about. But as far as funding childcare, I don't know that conversation has happened, but business now, you know, since COVID, businesses are much more involved in the conversation, and has been involved in advocacy around childcare over the past couple of years. Yeah, I don't know, Jan, do you have any other thoughts on that?
No,
I
think we need to recognize that childcare is the workforce behind the workforce.
Yes, yeah.
And businesses benefit by that workforce that is so but it's really undertaken. And if people can't work, they're not contributing to the tax revenue. And when Skip mentions the fact that we're funding these programs, there are things that later on in life that we don't really have a choice in terms of funding. If a child drops out of school and enters the juvenile justice system, there, you know, we don't say we can only afford this much toward the juvenile justice system. We have to house that person, right? And so the thing is that if we feel like this is dollars well invested, because we're saving on costs later on, and our goal is in these formative years to support those children and those families so that the families can work, and then later on that child can benefit from those foundational skills, go through schooling, graduate, and be a productive tax-paying individual. So that's the goal here with investing these dollars. So it's dollars that you might not immediately see a return on investment, but in terms of long-term return on investment, it definitely is there.
The problem, though, to address that, my issue is that money is really just a small part of the problem. There's a lot of money that's going towards all these efforts, but we're still failing in a lot of ways. There are a lot of kids who are not getting what they need. And that's because we're not talking about the other factors that lead to this. Why did we lose the focus on education? How do we better engage parents who are struggling with the issues of poverty. And a lot of that doesn't take money. It takes the community coming together and being willing to put their time into it. And that's really not happening, not in the way that it should. And so we've been working on a project where we've been trying to get out there and just engage families. It will cost next to nothing to do that program. And we've been at it a year trying to just get that little tiny bit of money to make that happen. We all need to be involved in trying to understand the problem. It's way more complex. It has a lot of layers to it. It's not just about money. It's about how did we go off track? How did we get to this place where it's not as important? And I just recently saw when I think it was at the Salvation Army in the middle of the winter, that they were looking to get families to come into the Head Start program yet. There are 2 Head Start programs at PAX and Cheston, I think. I think that they haven't even filled those slots. So, what is it that we have to do to get parents more engaged? How can we support them better so they understand the importance of education, that's the ticket out? And then how do we all come together and volunteer one little bit of our time to make that happen? Because we can all do that. It's possible, but people just are not doing it.
In line with your comments, I know as a former police officer in Waldes too, we've seen a lot of the troubled youth come from single parent families. In many cases, they're involved in gangs, all too often drugs. How do these early education efforts combat those kind of issues?
Yeah, that's a great question. So high quality pre-K actually one of the benefits is reducing involvement in the criminal justice system or juvenile justice system. We actually, I know we're working on our partner organization, Fight Crime, Invest in Kids is one of our principal partner organizations in the Start Strong PA and the pre-K campaign, but they're doing a report around the impact of high quality pre-K or access to high quality pre-K on children's involvement later in life in the criminal justice system. And I know that district attorneys and police chiefs and sheriffs are a part of that and will be involved in providing quotes and things like that in that report. So we can certainly share that when that comes out. It probably won't be for like a month or so. But we do know that it does impact, it does have an impact there. It has an impact on reduced need for special education services and K through 12. It increases the child's educational trajectory, prepares them obviously for K through 12, but there's all sorts of benefits. And that's actually included on our fact sheet so that folks have that at the forefront, that these are, as Jan mentioned, dollars that are well spent and well invested. And we know that high quality pre-K does have great investment or, return on investment in terms of our state dollars.
You reported the statistic about the percentage of non-subsidized eligible preschoolers that are in the high quality pre-K. Do you have that statistic for people that are not eligible for subsidy?
Yeah. So the percentage of like private pay, that's kind of
they're not in
they're in a high quality program.
Yeah.
You're asking. I'd have to get that, but basically it would be the other half of that. So I think I mentioned for subsidy, it's, for example, 76% of, let's see, I think it is on here. I'm sorry.
60s.
I'd have to check, but essentially the other half of those served in a high quality program would be considered private pay families.
Okay.
Or the other portion. Yeah.
I'll have to think about that.
Okay. All right.
I'll have to digest.
Yeah.
My other question could probably be answered at another time by Jan or probably 4 or 5 other people in the room, but I'll ask it anyway. What's the difference when you curricularly speaking between Head Start and pre-K counts? Curriculum wise, what's the difference?
They're very similar. Head Start has federal requirements. Somebody just asked me this the other day. I don't know specifically if there's I don't think there's large differences, but essentially the Head Start program is a federal program. The state program has to follow their state early learning standards similar to K through 12. So there are standards in early learning that pre-K counts.
So the state
providers.
program is filling the void because to qualify for the federal, you have to be extreme poverty more so than others. I get it. Thank you.
Yes, yeah. For Head Start, it's 100%, and pre-K counts, it's 200%.
Just an observation, if there was a program put up there called the Nurse Family Partnership. If you really, so much of this comes down to generational poverty. We, in spite of everything that we've done, we haven't broken largely the issue of generational poverty. That program, the Nurse Family Partnership, in my opinion, has the greatest opportunity to break generational poverty of everything that was up there. And I think they're all great programs, but everything was up there. The Nurse Family Partnership has the greatest opportunity to break the cycle of generational poverty associated particularly with single parent households. And yet, as evidenced by Governor Shapiro's proposed budget, our politicians seem reluctant to fund this program when we should be putting as much money as we possibly can afford to put into that program, realizing that many things have to be balanced. If we could break the issue of generational poverty, so much of this would take care of itself.
Yeah, evidence-based home visiting is a great program, and as Kevin mentioned, there isn't a proposed increase for the evidence-based home visiting line this year. Yeah, but it doesn't serve nearly the number of families that would be eligible. So basically, evidence-based home visiting is a program where it's a nurse or a social worker, a nurse practitioner that goes into the home while mother is pregnant, provides education, teaches them about child development so that they know what to expect once their child's born. They know that, their 1 month old is not going to crawl, things like that. They know those developmental milestones and recognize if their child isn't meeting those milestones, and they also help the family get connected to early intervention services if they need it. So it's a great program that I think it only serves like 5% of the eligible families. And it is a voluntary program, reduces child abuse and neglect, reduces or improves families' connection to the community and things like that. They're great outcomes.
Evan, I think you found your next career. You could be a lobbyist now.
If you look at the results from home visitation, effective home visitation program, you can't argue that they aren't worthwhile. You can't argue that they don't make an impact. And I know politicians have to make a choice, but sometimes the choices they make defy explanation.
Kevin, part of the problem is Nurse Family Partnerships themselves. For several years, the local Nurse Family Partnership was a member of our Kiwanis, paid for by one of our other members. They could never find time to come to any meeting. And we would say to them, what do you need? They would never take time to answer for anything. So what more can you do for them?
They're stretched, they are stretched thin.
Yes, they are. And they actually, they did get a pretty large increase in last year's budget. I'm blanking on the amount. But it was a historic increase in the last year's budget. So, right now they're also having workforce challenges in terms of finding those folks that can go into the home and provide that service. So they're, taking this time to kind of get ramped up.
Yeah, I'm sorry to be dominating this thing, but of course I didn't add up all those numbers, but I'm sure it's over $1 billion that we're talking about statewide.
What's spent now or what we're asking for or
Whatever.
Well, okay, so childcare. So for childcare, yeah, it's like 1.2 billion that funds childcare. So that's subsidy, that's quality, all those things.
Okay, so
Yes.
with a B.
Yep. And 23% of that is state dollars.
Okay.
So
But my
the rest is federal.
concern is with that volume and amount of money, what efforts are made to combat fraud and abuse?
So there are efforts in place within the Department of Human Services that ensure there's levers in there to ensure that there isn't any fraud or abuse. In terms of the child care subsidy program, you know, if there is a report of fraud or abuse, it goes to the Office of Attorney General and they investigate and all that. But in terms of provider fraud, providers have to have a subsidy agreement in place with the Department of Human Services. The family pays, if they're eligible for subsidy, the family pays their portion directly to the provider. And then this is the reimbursement rate. So part of the reimbursement rate comes from the Department of Human Services that goes directly to the provider, and then the family pays their copay based on their family size and income. Does that answer your question? Or are you thinking of other fraud?
Gotta be out there, and I don't recall hearing any major news announcements saying this group or this corporation was prosecuted for taking $1 million that could have gone to the kids programs. You know, I'm very skeptical about all this money going to where it needs to go.
I don't know. I think there's a lot of things already in place. If you're a childcare provider for any state, you really have to jump over hoops.
Yeah.
And the families as well. I mean, everything is scrutinized. These families come in and they have to really expose all of their life to whoever is administering that program. And the same goes for childcare providers. The childcare providers are scrutinized, and if you're not following what you're supposed to be following, you wouldn't be doing it. I mean,
They withhold
yeah,
payment too.
Yeah, they would withhold payment. So I don't. What is the percentage of fraud? I would think it would be very low, because there's just no way. There's so many things in place to keep that from happening. And when you look at other programs, I can understand why you would say that. Like other programs you see where things can fall through it. But childcare is, there's so many mandatory rules and regulations and protocols, and they need all of this funding. I mean, asking for teachers to be paid and administer. I mean, I asked Julie Novak to come today. I mean, like, she was sticking around because she was going to be inspected, probably within the next day or two. So childcare providers are always looking for somebody coming in and scrutinizing their facility and wanting to give the best that they can offer, to show.
And I pray that's true.
I think it is. I think it is probably compared.
Money that's supposed to go toward the kids is not pocketed by some kids.
I think the one area where you might have there might be an area would be whether or not the program's high quality. That's the one area there may be a program that's getting money, but maybe their teachers are not, or their staff is not to the level of which they should be. So I guess in that regard, would you say that, Jan, that would be the only area where you could say that they might not be getting?
Well, but in Pennsylvania, with stars in place, somebody's always looking at it.
Yes.
You've got licensing over here, and you've got stars people over here. Somebody is always looking at their program, and it goes to what you're talking about, Skip. It's not just the quality of the program. It's how it operates. It looks at everything. Having been in a director's position for years in Bucks County, the county looks at the money, the state looks at the money, the child care components look at the money. There's so many things in place that take care of that, in addition, to me as the director wanting to make sure that we were getting the subsidy money that we were supposed to be getting. That's how we survived. So I think there are more than enough places. I'm not saying it never happens, but there were so many things that were, as Janet said, there to oversee what was happening with that money. And they changed it from time to time. It used to be that the family got all of the money directly. that's where you had problems.
Yeah.
Because when they got their money, that didn't always come to your program. They changed that while I was the director and said, yeah, no, we can't do that. Too many lost dollars there. So that did change.
I think it sounds like a lot of money, but each center doesn't get that much. So it sounds like a lot, but it's being distributed a lot of places, so they just don't have that much money.
And to give you a sense of like provider costs. So if you're a childcare program, and feel free to back me up, but for those in the room, you know, they have either rent or a mortgage for their actual building. They have utilities, they have liability insurance, they have food for, you know, children. They have compensation for their staff if they provide benefits. That's where their money goes. And it's, you know, it's not enough to really make money. You know, as I mentioned, the state does not reimburse what it's actually costing a provider to provide subsidized childcare. So if it costs $100 a day, they're getting $60. So where's that $40 coming from? It's coming from private pay families. So that's middle-class families that they are balancing their budgets on. And that's, you know, a lot of other people. So their rates are being increased to subsidize, you know, subsidized childcare families. So that's not fair to middle-class families because they don't have a lot of money either for childcare. So that's why really the state needs to come in and support them, because it's not fair to middle-class families to fund the system. And that's what's happening.
So you know, our society, and Terry brought it up with large businesses, sports enterprises. There's money in our society to fund education. Of that, there's no doubt. Why is that such a stretch? Why has the educational system fallen apart, like Marianne so eloquently pointed out? And what can be done in short time, or, you know, short time frame, like right now, or within the next 6 months kind of thing, to you know, I'm sure people are addressing it, but how do we, you know, like raise the volume of that, you know, that argument, that voice?
I think just, you know, with general advocacy, you know, participating in the campaign, and the action alerts, you know, contacting, you know, in conversations with your state legislators and also the federal level. We also advocated last year for, you know, this to be addressed at the federal level with increasing federal dollars, which would help states too, because Pennsylvania is not the only state that's having this issue. This is happening all across the country where childcare workers are not paid. Yeah, everyone's having the same issue. So it's not just specific to Pennsylvania.
So it's really kind of a huge staffing
It
issue.
is. Yeah. Yeah.
But I think we have the ability to work with families from the beginning. From before, if they don't have money for childcare, there are other things that we can do to provide interim support. And I don't think we're doing that. And I think the Nurse Family Partnership is a good example of that. And it is the effects of poverty. So at the same time as you're addressing those issues and helping those parents get their kids started off on the right foot early, you have to be addressing the issues of poverty. And it's a complicated problem. You need the community, you need the parents engaged, you need to provide something to those kids that you could do in the interim without childcare, some small benefits, and all work together to make that happen now. And that's where it takes everybody's effort, and it's just not happening. It's not happening. And if you look at some of the low quality programs, those tend to be in the areas where the children are coming out of poverty. And I've been in those schools for other reasons. And those parents have no idea what's going on there all day as the music's playing all day and the kids are just told, go over there and take a nap. You know, so if our goal is to have a population that it's more equitable, that all kids are coming to school ready to learn, moving through school, always learning, parents understanding the importance of advocacy, we have to start doing something different. And it's getting deeper into parent engagement and addressing the issues of poverty and bringing the community together. It's all of our responsibility, and we really don't have the right to sit back and let those kids fall behind. We really don't.
We all pay the price. Yeah, we could probably go on for a couple more hours. Thank you so much, Kim.
Thanks for the invitation.
And I would like to give an opportunity to let our Pennsylvania District Executive Director for another several months the opportunity to address us. Thank you so much, Kevin. We very much appreciate you coming and joining us.
First, it's great to be here again today. I was thinking on my way out, I am stepping down from my position, retiring on September 30th. And I was thinking on my way out that of the clubs that I visit, and I've visited hundreds of clubs.
Step over there.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. You're good there.
Visited hundreds of clubs across the state, but probably other than the Williamsport Club, I've been to the Easton Club more than any other club, although I have no real record of that. That's just based on my thought pattern, but I couldn't come up with any clubs that I've been to other than Williamsport that I've been here as often. So it's good to be back to Easton, and probably this will be my last trip to one of your meetings, at least in this capacity. I don't think I'm going away, but that's not for me fully to determine. By the way, if you have want somebody to work as an advocate in PennAEYC, just let me know. But my real reason to be here today was just to I would have been here on April 1st when you honored appropriately our good and dedicated Kiwanian Bill Walters. I almost said servant, but servant in a good sense, because serving in capacity. I don't need to give him my directions, by the way. I always print the directions when I go somewhere, but yet my GPS has never failed me, so I don't know why I continue to do that. But I do that. I guess that I'm sort of telling my age when I say I still print the directions, but I couldn't be here. We had 3 things going on in Hershey area that day. I could be at all 3 of those. I could be at 3 places since they're all in Hershey, but I couldn't be at a 4th to honor Bill. So I just wanted to make a trip out here to acknowledge him, to do that. I sent a nice letter. I'm sure that letter was read, so I'm not going to take the time to read that letter again, but I do have a copy of it here. But I do want to, I would have given this on the, if I'd have been here April 1st. So I do want to recognize Bill with this.
So I guess you want me up there.
Yeah, I do. with this certificate of recognition. And it says, in recognition of outstanding service to Kiwanis of mankind, this award is presented to William Bill Walters by Kiwanis International Pennsylvania District, and is signed by me, the executive director. So Bill, I'm pleased to recognize you one more time. I'll give you a copy of this letter. You might have gotten a copy of it, but you can have another copy. And again, everyone that contributes to Kiwanis in the way that they can, and in their ability to give to Kiwanis with their time and resources. But Bill Walters certainly upholds the objects of Kiwanis as well as any Kiwanian that I have come across. And so I am glad that your club recognized him. I'm glad to be out here today just to say a few words of praise and thank you, my friend.
Thank you. And I see you grow in Kiwanis. I'm glad to see what you've become through Kiwanis.
Thank you.
And it's been a great time. As you know, I'm retiring as secretary this year after 20 years. Although I'm still called the project manager. Kind of like giving away and doing these things and everything else. And so of course I'll still be active. So I'm so happy you came.
Okay, thank you.
He's not just the project manager. He's the special project manager.
I would expect to some extent that I might find myself with that title in a few months. Well, do I have time?
Please, yes, please.
I don't want to take up any time. I know that that time is a factor in all meetings, but just give you an idea of what's occurring in the district very quickly. With my departure, we have put together a committee that's looked at what's going on in the future of Kiwanis, Pennsylvania, and we have decided to break my position into 3 positions. Now, I'm not going to offer any commentary on that. You can take what commentary you want out of that. But we will now have rather than have an executive director, we will have a district secretary, a district treasurer. These are titles that I did hold, by the way. And then we also decided to hire a meeting manager. We decided the district secretary will be the person that is sort of the go-to person in terms of communication, will staff our office, although we may go to a virtual office at some point here in the not too distant future. Our district treasurer will handle the finances of the organization, and our meeting manager will be the general manager of all our meetings and events. And we felt that we wanted to have someone in that position because when we were assessing our financial risks, other than the issues associated with membership on a long-term basis, the next greatest risk we faced were these meetings and the contracts associated with these meetings. 20, 30 years ago, when you signed a hotel contract, they were pretty easy and, you know, maybe they took 2 pages. Now, some of these contracts are 12, 13 pages. Our lawyer friends have made them quite long. And the big issue, though, is the attrition issues and how easily you can get caught up in not being able to meet the issues associated with that. And then suddenly you find yourself with thousands of dollars of unfunded liability, maybe even tens of thousands of dollars in unfunded liability. So we felt that we needed someone that had the ability to deal with hotel contracts, negotiate favorable contracts as much as they can be favorable, and to deal with issues associated with those contracts when they raise, and also to see the general management of these issues. Because when you're dealing with volunteers and they change from year to year, you need someone to provide guidance to these volunteers and oversee their activities. So that's the way we're headed. One other quick thing I want to share with you is that in the last 4 years, and some of this was, of course, due to the COVID associated issues, we were only able to open 1 new club in the Pennsylvania district. And here in the last 3 weeks, we have opened 2, and we anticipate 3 to 5 more before September 30th. So for the first time in a number of years, we are seeing growth in terms of the number of clubs that we have. So that is good news that I wanted to share with you. I've always appreciated my association with the Easton Club. The Easton Club has always been a strong supporter of the Pennsylvania district and the activities of Kiwanis International. And certainly we look forward to that continued support. I was a little weird not going to the Pomfret Club, but this seems like a great setting, and it looks like it's working well for you.
Well, does anybody up there on the screen have any questions for Kevin? Kathy Kane and Charlie Chase.
Hi, Kathy, Charlie.
Okay.
Well, I would like to say, on behalf of the Kiwanis Club of Easton, we deeply appreciate your many, many years of selfless service to Kiwanis, specifically to our Easton Club and to the district in general. I personally have not been a member of Kiwanis for over 5 years, but in those 5 years, and going to district conventions and seeing you in the periphery, you've always been focused and dedicated to doing whatever needed to be done to further the mission of Kiwanis. So thank you so much for your time and your service, your dedication.